Hey guys, welcome back. It's episode 10. Wow.
We've got our guest back in over here through popular demand, AI Ray, once again with us. Last time we had this amazing conversation where we reminded people about a problem with using closed systems. We gave them the solution, but more importantly, we opened the box and we showed them how to actually do the system. So many comments came to us asking us about, hey, how do I do this on an enterprise? How do I do it on a local system? So today, AI Ray is going to open the box once again and show us a SI deployment diagram. So we're going to tell you guys as to how this whole thing is going to work. And you can then use it for your own internal systems or your enterprise. It's going to be an exciting session. So welcome back, AI Ray. Let's dive straight into it, right?
Thank you, Vivek. Just a reminder to everyone, I hope nobody's computer is burned off. As long as your PCs are okay, I'm sure you can try out everything that we are going to do today.
Yes. Okay. So let us go into our session. So the first thing, last time we talked about the advantages of using these closed kind of open or virtual or private AI systems.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of questions about us. Oh, this looks so good and all that. But I think we need to also tell people about some of the challenges. Okay, so there are some challenges. So AI Ray, can you tell us what are the possible challenges that are there in these kind of systems or these deployments?
So Vivek, before we dive into the challenges themselves, I love giving examples for what we're going to talk about. So this time, let me ask everyone, you guys have watched a lot of Hollywood movies, and generally in an action movie, when the hero is sitting in a helicopter and it's about to crash, he pulls his stick and the helicopter stabilizes, right? So it's easy.
Yeah.
All you need to do is
right?
operate the stick. And so what we showed you the last time is basically moving the stick. But to do that, you have to go through, in order to stabilize a helicopter, you need hours and hours and hours of training. And similarly, when you want to run a private LLM for your enterprise, you need extensive information and knowledge how to do it. You want to deploy it on your own computer? No problem. It won't burn. Your PC is going to be fine. You're going to get some answers. Probably you'll get some useful information as well. But when it comes to deploying it for your own enterprise, the game is a little different.
Yeah.
And that is the first challenge that has been listed on the screen. So the most critical issue when you deploy any kind of a private AI, private enterprise LLM, is to select the right model and to train it on the company's data. These are very specific tasks. I don't want to say that they're very difficult to do. They're not difficult, they're easy, as long as you know what you're doing.
Correct. So like we had on Hugging Face, right now as we speak, there are about 1.1 million plus models, 700,000 from last month.
Yeah.
So the first one is model selection. So the probability of selecting one out of, it's already 1 in a million, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yes, Hugging Face. But at the same time, you can already look at the left side. You can see there are models fit for purpose, image, text, extraction. There are so many things which are fit for purpose. So it already reduces the complexity. But still, these are tens of thousands of models.
Absolutely
Right. So the probability from 1 in a million has reduced to 1 in 10,000.
Yeah.
Still a tough choice.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah. You just said that, okay, the model choice is quite clear. We need to choose 1 in 10,000. What about this training? What does that mean? Yeah.
So without getting into the mathematics of how a model is built and how it is trained, let us try and imagine a model to be, say, a brand new cycle. Now, the cycle has been designed by the manufacturer to move forward when you push the pedal down.
Yeah.
But then you may want the cycle to move faster or slower as you pedal, depending on whether you're going up a hill or you're coming down a hill. Now, model tuning and model training is something very similar, because you need to identify what is the data that you're going to use to train your model, because it needs to know whether you're going to drive it uphill or you're going to come downhill. Just coasting along asking simple questions like, hey, give me a menu for today's lunch, or hey, give me a travel itinerary. But not, hey, here's an Excel sheet with 10,000 rows of data pertaining to the sales of my company for the past 10 years. And I want you to give me a summary and give me projections. Now, that requires training.
Correct.
And that is why training is an important aspect.
I see. That's absolutely. So training means also structuring the data in the right way, in a CDP perhaps, a centralized data platform, right? And the other thing also is that we need to classify these. And I think maybe briefly, let's introduce users to the concept of a RAG. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you do model training, now how RAG is
Oh, what is RAG? Sorry, let's tell her. RAG, guys, is retrieval.
augmented generation.
Yeah.
RAG, as the name, as the full form suggests, what happens is you select a model and then you give it your data.
Correct.
And then instead of you asking a question which the model is going to answer based on its knowledge, it's going to use these documents or this data to respond to your queries. Now, again, let me give you an example of that. A model will come to you pre-trained with, let us say, the information that is available on Wikipedia. Now, Wikipedia does not have the information of the physics experiments which are there in your class 12 textbook. It knows the physics experiments. It knows the principles of physics. So the model will be able to answer questions on physics, but it will not be able to tell you exactly what did you do wrong in your physics experiments which are listed in your textbook. Now, to do that, you will have to give the model your textbooks. You'll have to give the knowledge that is there in those textbooks and then start asking the model, hey, look, I did this experiment, but the steel ball which is supposed to roll down did not. And then perhaps the model will, with this new information at hand, will be able to answer your queries and tell you exactly what you did wrong.
Yeah. So basically, the RAG word is almost like a map towards your data, right?
Yeah.
So I'm giving I'm giving you a map. Here's my data. Here's a map. I'm giving a map so it knows where to go. The RAG is basically that, right?
Yeah.
So that's also a bit of the training side, guys. So that's basically it. But let's go into the other challenges over here, right? Which have been mentioned.
One of the key issues in any kind of systems deployment which takes place, especially related to IT, is to understand how much computing and how much horsepower do you really need. And that's a very important question to answer, because if you get this answer wrong, you're going to be stuck with some very expensive hardware.
Yes.
And maybe you bought a cannon to hammer a nail.
Yeah.
Or maybe you ended up buying a hammer when you needed a gun.
Yeah.
The analogy basically is that you need to match the computing requirements with your work requirements. Identifying the right kind of infrastructure is important.
Yes. So that means what kind of GPU systems you want. Can it be run on a simple device like a Mac, or do you need GPU systems to run something which is a bit more complex? But guys, it doesn't mean that we need to have racks and racks. For most of the kind of medium-sized enterprises, I think a small little gaming laptop should be sufficient.
Absolutely,
isn't it?
Yeah. So when we look at small, medium-sized startups with maybe an employee strength of 25, 30 people, a gaming laptop will suffice, because they won't really be looking at a massive networking infrastructure, having to log into various applications to access their data. So yes, a simple gaming laptop is adequate. But when you talk about an enterprise or a company which is, let us say, about between 8 to 100 people, and it has its own LAN setup, and it has a company website on which you have data where your employees are going to access it. Now, in this case, you need higher performing GPU in a server format with the adequate RAM and storage, so that, because obviously when the organization size increases, the requirement of processing data and the kind of computing problems which you would give it would also increase proportionately.
Yeah, there's a good paper on this. I think we'll leave a link in our YouTube, guys, so you can actually select what is the kind of RAM or the GPU power that you need. We'll leave the link inside our video so that you guys can do that. It's a very good paper. So let's go on. What's fine-tuning models?
We spoke earlier about training models and giving them documents and turning it into a retrieval augmented generation. Now, when we look at fine-tuning models, fine-tuning is required to eliminate bias. Now, we all need to understand bias. You see, a lot of everything that is generated in AI comes from the data sets.
Correct.
The models are built as mathematical models, and then they're trained on these data sets. Now, data sets are again taken from organizations which have existed for a long time. So to give you an example, a data set of, let us say, the physics department of MIT would comprise of all the patents and theses and project works that have been executed in that department over history. So that kind of a data set, which has got historical data, is bound to have bias. And biases are common. It could be racial biases, it could be gender biases, it could be regional biases, it could be social biases. And whether we like it or not, although all of us want to be fair and equal and so on, but the bias is there in the data which we have today.
Absolutely.
Now, you need to fine-tune a model so that you eliminate the bias. One of the best examples that I've come across is all of you guys, since you've installed the LLMs on your computer, you can ask the LLM to describe a profession in 2 words. Say, describe a doctor, describe a steward, describe a nurse. And you look at the answers, and I'm
As
sure
an
you'll
image.
understand.
Generate an image.
Generate images, that makes
Yeah.
it much easier. But even in text, you will get the necessary bias. You will notice that there are certain professions where your answers are always male.
Yes.
Certain of them where the answers are always female.
Yeah.
And of course, there are regional biases. Like a data set which was generated, let us say, in the US is definitely...
A doctor is going to be a white male, correct?
Yeah. So thanks for putting it out. These are the biases which need to be eliminated from the models. The model itself isn't wrong. It is just trained on the data set which has bias.
Yeah, so don't blame the AI, right?
Yeah,
it's not about, I mean, I keep on saying this on many of the, like a bad workman blames his tools, right? So it's about, if you have the tool, you need to know how to fine tune it. And there are many systems which are available where you can actually fine tune these things. And we'll be talking about that in later, how do you can fine tune, but this is a little bit of a specialist task to actually fine tune. And what about the last one? What is the challenge over there?
So we spoke about this as an advantage as well, where we said that the new models keep coming to the market and you can always plug in the new models and start using them. Well, it's true. It's not complicated, but then you need to take the right steps. And if you make a mistake, it's possible that you got a whole lot of trained data, but then a new model which can't talk to it. So there are these, in many ways, these are housekeeping issues which will come up as and when you change the data or you change the model. And you need to take the right steps to mitigate all the problems that may arise.
Correct. So I think that covers more or less what are the challenges. I think now our users are going to be very interested in knowing how to actually deploy this. So there are going to be 2 parts of this, guys. So there's going to be the part where we are going to talk about a standalone local deployment, and then we're going to talk about an enterprise kind of a deployment. Please remember, this is quite, we're making it quite simple, right? And it's a simplistic diagram. I think you guys will get the overall concept. Yes, over to you, ARA.
So what I'm going to do now to explain this is I'm going to draw it out. As I draw it out, I'll keep talking about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that should give everyone a fair idea as to what exactly happens when you go in for an enterprise deployment and why it is simple yet fairly technically intensive task. So let's first understand, we spoke about having a local private LLM.
Yes.
So that's, let us consider this as a box, which has got my LM Studio, and it has got the anything LLM, which basically is my private AI stack. Now, as long as this computer is available with me and it's got power, I'm going to be able to run this LLM without any issues.
Yes.
But when I look at enterprise deployment, I probably will use LM Studio.
So maybe
not.
This is still on the local machine, right?
This is still on the local machine.
It's on the local machine. So we install both of these. They're all sitting on the same thing. And even if there's no internet, we can still access this. Whereas anything LLM talks to LM Studio is where all the models are. And anything LLM talks to the LM Studio, and you can run it. This is what we showed last time,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
So this is exactly. I just briefly, before we go into the enterprise, I think there's a construct that we need to talk about, isn't it? So the deployment framework. So guys, you saw on the chart how we can do this on a local machine. And this is something you guys can do for yourselves, right? And use it on a plane, etc. But now let's imagine a more complex setup, which is for enterprises. AI, what's the framework that we're talking about?
So what you're seeing now is called the PPT framework. It's a standard framework used in all organizations. Basically, it stands for people, process, and technology.
Correct.
So whenever you want to introduce a new technology or a new system into your organization, you have to take into account the people who are going to be affected by it, or the users, their training, which is going to be part of the process, and other processes which you'll introduce with regards to managing your data, storing your data, communicating with the new system, and of course, the commensurate technology, which will require, let us say, servers and machines and networking devices and so on.
Yeah.
So you need to maintain a balance. And this PPT framework is what enables organizations to bring in new cutting-edge tech.
Yeah. we talked about change management, and I think this is a bit of change management because McKinsey, and we've said this many times, right? For every $1 invested in technology, there you go, people in process, change management, $5.
Absolutely.
Right? And so this is exactly what it is. Let's go into the design of an enterprise deployment AI.
Yeah. So like what I just showed, we spoke about a private AI stack, which is basically the LM Studio and anything LLM coexisting on your computer, and you being able to run the AI models offline.
Okay.
Now, what I've drawn out already, to save time, is the private AI stack which exists on a single PC. Now, when you come to an enterprise deployment, you will. When you come to an enterprise deployment, what happens is now you need a machine which has, let us say, only the server component, that is the LM Studio.
Right. So that's separate. So that's going to be, let's say, a gaming up high power GPU system, which is sitting standalone in the server room or in their data rack.
Yeah. And this is a server now which has got a huge amount of RAM, or maybe not.
Yeah.
And of course, it has a GPU because it needs to run intensive
AI. This is enterprise.
Yeah. And now this server is going to be available within your own organization. Let us say to the marketing guys. All right. And maybe to the sales guys.
Yeah.
And thereafter, your research teams.
Yeah.
Now, when I say that this is now going to be available to your own members of your team, it basically means that over the networking infrastructure that is available in your company, you're able to give them access, let us say, possibly over a local website that you've created or a company website which has a login.
Intranet?
Yeah, on the intranet. So this is going to be a role-based access, which is, I'm sorry for the spelling there. All right. So the role-based access is what you're going to configure for all the users within the organization. But then the obvious question is, hey, if you're telling me that LM Studio or my enterprise LLM is going to be offline and not connected to the internet, and that my marketing, sales, and research guys are going to be accessing this server at the same time, which means they're also going to be offline, but
That's
job is online.
Yeah, exactly.
So what I want to remind everyone here is that this is a deployment which is purely for anything LLM, or rather for your enterprise LLM service. The entire user base, which comprises of your marketing, research, sales, legal, and all the other guys, whoever it is that you're going to give access to, will still be able to use the internet, because that protection or separation of the users and the server from the internet is going to be done using some simple networking tools and frameworks which are already available to protect the network.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into the details.
Simple thing is blocking the DNS, blocking DHCP on the server.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a very basic thing that we can do.
Yeah.
We can also VLAN the systems and so on. But this is not out of the ordinary. This is something that most organizations are already doing.
Correct. They've got private intranets where there are servers like this already there.
Absolutely.
Right?
So now what this does is, like we've been discussing and saying this over and over again, that your entire data continues to reside on the server.
Yes.
And this server does not have
any connection to the internet. So this is completely, guys, this is a on-premise kind of a solution where the server has only access to the data that you have provided and it doesn't go out. So it's completely secure. We've managed the security, and the clients who are in all of these departments can access this server and at the same time also access whenever outside, whatever they want. So this is an entirely secure kind of a system. Yes. What else are the considerations?
The considerations are going to go back to the challenges that we spoke about. The server, you need to have a good idea about what you need, what is your requirement, and based on that, you come up with the necessary requirements of the hardware.
Yeah.
What GPU, how much RAM, and accordingly, then the selection of the model, selection of the tasks.
Yes.
You may be a FMCG company which wants to run ad campaigns, so you want to do something with generating images. And not have conversational models. Then you may be a company which is purely doing statistical analysis of data. So you need computational models. So the selection of models is the next most important.
Yeah, and the selection of models also you can have a router over there which actually selects the models on the fly depending on the kind of questions.
Yeah.
So that's also completely buildable on the client
side. So the same
side.
organization can have multiple models.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's possible to serve these models or
Depending on the kind of question which comes
Yeah.
in, right? Okay.
Yeah,
So I think we've covered quite a bit. It's a bit, I hope that all our listeners have got a bit of an understanding as to how things can be set up and can be done. I'm quite excited because, and I hope all our listeners also enjoyed it. I think
Before we finished off, Vivek, just want to put in a reminder to anyone who's wanting to employ this. You need to understand that if your company adopts, you and your rival company both adopt an AI system at the same time, whoever maintains better data, has more data to train the system, will be the one who will come up winning the fight.
yeah. So the algo wars, which people have talked about
Yeah.
and never realized is going to come very soon. So basically, if you're a company, you've got data with the correct models and the correct fine tuning, you will win the algo war against a company, and they're going to definitely crush the guys who are not going to even start on this, right? So it's a good wake up call for every enterprise who's not yet getting into AI transformation, because somebody's going to, and the kind of models we're already building and use cases we already have in market, the time for it is right now. There's no running away from this. Okay, so that's it from us. I hope you really liked what we said, and please do like, share, and give us a comments. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye bye. Signing off.